Okay, so right now you should be able to see the screen that just has my name and it's the class that we're having and so forth. And somewhere on your screen, you should be able to see the participants and, you know, like myself and Laura and anybody else that is in the class. If you only see their name and you don't see a video, possibly they have decided not to share their video, and that's perfectly okay. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, Zoom is used for video and audio chats. Some people also use their mobile devices. For whatever reason, they're not able to be at home and they need to pick up, you know, and join a meeting. So it can also be done in a mobile device. Although, as I mentioned, I've been in meetings where people have used their phone, and because, you know, they're on the go somewhere, again, the connection may not be seamless. So keep that in mind. There's a desktop version of Zoom, and there's also the Zoom app. Okay, right now I'm on a Windows 10 computer and I'm using the desktop version. If you're on a tablet, then you would be using the app and it would have guided you to log in and so forth. So they both have pretty much the same features. It's just in different sections. It's displayed differently. If you're on a tablet, if you're on a phone, or if you're on a regular computer. And what I have found is that it's easier to manage sometimes a desktop version, and it's nice to have a nice big screen so I can see all the participants and I can see the, you know, the person that's holding the meeting, and then I can see any presentation that is taking place like right now, the PowerPoint presentation. Zoom is initially free, but there's also paid versions. So for personal use, you're able to use the Zoom free, you know, the free Zoom, and you can have conversations. If you do one-on-one, you can have it for longer periods of time. When there's more than 3 people gathered, they cut you off at like 40 minutes or so. Okay. But for most of us, for personal use, for getting together with family, with friends, for a book club, for, you know, any type of meetings like that, the free version is typically good enough. Okay, and then my other, the other note that's here is if you have a desktop computer, like I just talked about, you may need to attach a webcam to be seen and heard. Laptops typically have a built-in camera. Everybody knows that. If you're invited to join the meeting via an email, then you don't really need to create a Zoom account and have an email address, have a password, and all that stuff. So if you feel hesitant about creating your own Zoom account and scheduling, just have somebody send you a link, an invitation, and then you're good to go. The free version allows you to host up to 100 participants, okay, for about 40 minutes. And sometimes I've been in meetings where, let's say for a club, we held a meeting and then after 40 minutes it shut us off, and then the person sent in and created a new meeting, sent in another scheduled meeting, and then we all hopped into the next meet to continue into the next invitation. So you can circumvent the system that way too. Okay, and using a Zoom account. Now for a Zoom account, you can go ahead and it allows you to schedule meetings. You can send invitations, and there's a bunch of settings that you can go ahead and tweak when you're the host and you're creating the account, the invitation, the meeting, and so forth. Okay, let's talk about some potential issues, audio or video. You need to make sure that you pay attention to the prompts when the screen, when you first log into your account. Sometimes it will pop up a message and say, do you want to allow the camera to access? Do you want to allow audio? Okay, not on all devices does it pop up. On some, it's already preset. On others, you have to go ahead and, you know, allow that. If not, we're not going to see you and we're not going to hear you. Okay. When you go into the chat room, there's a whole bunch of control bars. And as you're moving around in the chat room, you will see at the bottom, there'll be a big bar that's displayed, and that has all your tools. But after a few seconds, that bar goes away just to give you more room to see everything visibly. And so what I have people look at is on the bottom section on the left-hand side, you will go ahead and see a couple of little icons. And whenever you see whoops, let me go back here. Whenever you see the little red line going across, then that means that the video is not on. And also you won't be able to see yourself. So that's another clue. Okay. And if the audio is off, again, it will have a red slash. And so you have to activate that. So it depends on the device that you're in. When you log in to your Zoom invitation, you have to look around to make sure that both of those are enabled. Now, if you really don't want to be seen, of course, that's perfectly okay. You can go ahead and just leave the video off, and you can just listen or talk to us, you know, through that. Okay, you don't have to use the video if you don't want to. Okay. I took some screen prints of my computer when I was logging into the Zoom, and it popped up a message for me, said join with computer audio. So I had to go ahead and left click on that to be able to be heard. And then in the middle screen, you see there, it says join with video. So I had to click on that again to allow my video to be seen. So depending on the device, you might have to do that. In other devices, it just automatically comes up. But that's the first thing you look at to make sure that video is available and audio. And then you'll be put into the waiting room and you just wait for the host. So usually what I tell people to do is don't arrive too early. Usually the host will arrive a few minutes beforehand, but just be patient. If you see that, then that means that they are on and they know that you're waiting in the waiting room, and they'll let you in when they're ready for the attendees to come in. Poor connection, audio, video. Again, as I mentioned before, is usually used by your own internet connection or your equipment. Some people also like to use a headset so that, again, you can block out the background noise and you can hear better and people can hear you better, depending on the background where you're at home, in the office, or wherever. As far as connection, sometimes depending on what device you're using, it's a good idea to be as close as you can to your modem router. Okay, most of us are probably using Wi-Fi nowadays. What I have found that has worked for me, I'm using a laptop right now, so I connected directly with a cord, an Ethernet cord. Again, you may have one, you may not, and I plugged it in from my laptop directly into my router. So then I am not wireless, I am hardwired. You don't have to do that, but if you have access to one of those cords, an Ethernet cord, then I would see if you can connect from your computer and pull the cord directly onto the back of the router and plug it in there to give you a direct connection. Quiet space is always good. Believe me, some of the noises that you hear, I'm sure those of you that have attended video chats, you know, you can hear all kinds of noise. Okay. Again, it could be the device might be also causing a noise. You might hear blipping or, you know, clicking and so forth and so on. Try switching devices to a computer versus phone. As I mentioned before, sometimes you get better connectivity if you're not on your mobile device and if you're on a computer instead. use a wired connection. That's what I was talking about. The headset sometimes helps reduce noise, so that would be good. One thing with the headset is you have to make sure that when you set up the headset or plug in the headset, when you're looking at your audio on the bottom left corner in that black bar that shows up, that you select your headset, because remember the computer's used to using the audio for the computer. So you could plug it in and say, well, how come I can't hear anything? It's because it's using the computer audio versus your headset audio. So you've got to go down to that little icon where the mic is at and make sure you switch to the headset. And then you will be able to hear what's going on. These are all hiccups and things that have happened to me and some of my customers. And so that's what I'm sharing with you. There's a few items to think about as far as etiquette also. Okay. Obviously, arrive on time to the meeting, because again, if it's a large meeting and people start arriving late, then there's disruption. Like anything else, whether you're in a video chat or a meeting, you're going to go physically. We want to respect everybody's time and make sure that we can get there on time. And if you have any problems, technology issues getting on, then we can address those before the actual, meeting is supposed to start. Adjust your lights for good video quality, that you're in a room where it's well lit, that you can see well if you're the presenter in this case, that people can see you well, and so forth and so on. That's important too. You can find a spot somewhere in your house, in the office, where you have good lighting. Stage your area so you're not distracting what's behind you. If there's a lot of information, books, or cluttered, again, it's going to distract. As you're presenting, people are going to be looking behind you and reading, or look at those pictures, and so forth and so on. That's just my own. I'm a minimalist, so I try to make the background as blank as possible, just so that people can focus on the subject matter and not be trailing off and looking at all kinds of different things. Mute yourself when you log in to reduce noise. And the host, you as the host, if you are scheduling the meeting, you can set it up so that as people come in, there's not all this clang, bang, and so forth. So you're muted initially to allow you to come in quietly, and then depending on the presentation, you can be unmuted. So the host has the ability to do that, to mute everyone coming in. Stay focused on the meeting. Again, especially I can't imagine with kids to stay focused 1, 2, 3 hours, in a classroom environment with videos. That I'm sure was a challenge for many teachers and students. Look into the camera so that you're not looking up or down, and you're speaking to your audience through wherever your camera is at on your particular device. Dress appropriately. I'm not going to say anything else about that. Follow the host's instructions on when and how to ask questions. While you're attending the meeting, as far as changing the view, there's a couple of ways that you can display the little thumbnails that are, the rest of the attendees. You have a gallery view and a speaker view. So the speaker view will just put the person front center, and you can just focus on them, or you can do gallery view where you can see everybody, at the same time and clearly visibly look at everybody. So it's your preference as to how you want to do that. I believe sometimes it's already preset at gallery, depending on the device that you have. These are the little icons that you might see on your Zoom screen. And so the gallery view, even if it doesn't say gallery view, it shows a little grid. So that lets you know that you can see multiple thumbnails with, the attendees. And then the one with the speaker, you see the speaker front and center, and then the attendees at the top, the side, or the bottom. And I believe you can also drag that, window. As a presenter, I was able to drag and move that box around. Usually you'll see this on again, on my laptop, it was on the upper right corner, and I could go ahead and click and select the one I wanted. The full view might be too much, because then that throws everything out, and I can't really manipulate within the chat. So I like to set mine up under either speaker view or gallery view usually. Mute the video. Attendees have access to do this from meetings control section. Again, that's the bottom section. If you move your mouse around or you tap on your device, if it's a touch screen, you will see on the bottom section a whole bunch of controls being displayed. Okay. Here's some examples as far as the microphone. You want it to look like the first thumbnail that I have. If it's red or has a line through it, then that means that we can't hear you. Okay. The other thing you can do too, if you look at one of the thumbnails or your own thumbnail, and there's like 3 little dots that appear there, when you click on that, there's a little menu that shows up, and it gives you different options. One time somebody had asked me as far as the name, when you first log in, your very first Zoom chat, it will ask you to type in your name in there, okay? And then the next time, the name will automatically appear. Well, what if it's you and another, person, your husband, your spouse, and so you want to change the name because it's not going to be Tim, it's going to be Jane. So you can go into the 3 dots and you can click on rename and switch, change the name. And then for the next Zoom meeting, then you can change it back. So by going to 3 dots, the 3 dots is called More, M-O-R-E. Nowadays, many of these symbols, they don't have labels next to it as to what it is. You have to hover over it to let you know, or you just have to know that whenever you see something that has 3 dots, it means more, additional. Okay, so it gives you different options there. You can also use the keyboard spacebar to mute and unmute yourselves. I found this out not too long ago where I could just tap on my spacebar and it would mute me or unmute me. So that's another option. Of course, this is for keyboards. Access a chat features. Look for this in the meeting control section. So on the meeting control section is typically on the upper left corner. There's like either a little green dot or like a little screw, and you can go in. I'm sorry, the access chat meeting. We're talking about chatting. I was thinking about settings. The chat meeting is on the bottom bar. And when you clicked on it, that's where all of you typed in what devices you had or how many people were attending. When you go in there and chat, you'll notice it says everyone. So if you type a message, everybody that's in the room is going to see that message if they go to their chat section. If you just wanted to communicate with one other person in the chat room, you can click on the icon there, and it should show you everybody that's there, and you can select one person to talk to. And then if you do that, it's just a one-on-one chat. No one else is going to see it. So there is a way to speak with just one person from that particular class, or otherwise it's to everyone. So just be careful what you write on there. Okay, sharing the screen. Now, for sharing the screen, if you are the one hosting the meeting, you are able to share your screen, meaning what I'm doing right now, I'm able to go ahead and show you what's on my computer desktop, which is the PowerPoint presentation, and everybody can see it. And if you want one of the attendees to be able to share their screen, then the host has to give you permission to do that. Otherwise, you cannot share your screen. Okay, if you're just attending the meeting, you can't have someone look inside your computer. That's sharing the screen. Okay. And the little icon looks like this. It's a little box with an arrow facing up. And if you have a feature to allow that, then it will allow you to go ahead and share whatever's on your screen. As far as leaving the meeting, okay, you can leave the meeting at any time. Again, on that bottom bar to the right-hand side, there'll be something in red as far as leave the meeting. And when you click on it yourself, then it confirms, do you really want to leave the meeting? Because sometimes people might click by mistake, and Zoom wants to make sure that they confirm before you actually leave. The other way to, and it looks like this with the little icon. If the host says, okay, that's the end of the meeting, thank you very much, the host can end the meeting and then everybody is off totally. So the host has priority as to ending the meeting for everybody. Or you can say, I need to leave now because I have another meeting to attend. Then you can just manually click on the leave and leave yourself, and the meeting will still continue. Okay, the access settings. While you're in a meeting, you can go in and change some settings, and the icons might look one of two ways, like a little green shield or the little screw that you see there as an image. And typically it's on the upper left corner where you'll see one of these icons. So this is what they call the behind the scenes, to change some settings. And typically I would recommend doing that before if you're hosting the meeting, before you start the meeting, you can go in and change settings, but you do have access to changing it while the meeting is in progress. Here's what the screen would look like behind the scenes. You can see on the left-hand side, there are many different categories. You start at general, and there's things that are already pre-checked that Zoom has put in there. And there's also things that you can check yourself. What I would do is, if you want to play around with this, I always tell people, if you're going to do something on your computer, write down what you're changing, so that if you don't like it, you know how to go back and change it, put it back to the way it was. So make a note as to what has been pre-checked or what you would like to try. So you can see there's a variety of things there. Now, some people for meetings, they like to have dual monitors. So they have two computer screens. And on one computer screen, they can see all their attendees. So if there's like 50 people, well, if you've got a small screen, it's going to be very difficult for you to see all 50 people. And so they get two screens that they've connected, with their computer. And on one screen, they're able to put in maybe they're sharing a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation. And then on the other screen, they have all the attendees. So some people, like for classes, business meetings, they might do that. So this gives you the capability to do that also. And you'll see there's a section on, to video, audio, sharing screen. You can make all kinds of changes. We'll look at a couple of these in here also. But this is the behind the scenes and the access settings area. You can also make, changes, like, for example, I just pulled up this raise the hand, security. You can go in and make changes to that. The virtual background. You might have seen some people when they present and they've got this beautiful screen of maybe Paris or something in their background, saying, wow, that's really neat. Or it looks like they're in outer space or something like that. So that's called the virtual background. Okay, and I'm showing you some here. Now there's one catch. It all depends on the type of graphics that you have on your own computer. Okay, so a super basic computer may not have the graphics, the video, to enable that pretty screen to be shown. Okay, and so you will not be able to do it. And these are just some of the ones that show up. You might be able to put it in, and then it really looks funny and you can't really see well and so forth. So that has to do with your own computer and the graphics on that type of computer. It's like this. If your computer can't really handle it, it's not going to look good. What some people do is, in order to get this to work, they will purchase what they call a green screen. You can buy these at like Staples, Best Buy, online, Amazon, and so forth. And it's a screen that you put behind you. And I don't know all the technicalities of it, but because it's green and it's a certain way, it will allow you then to produce one of these backgrounds that can be seen nicely behind the scenes. I don't know if you could just use like green poster paper, probably that would help, but like anything else, they're going to make money. So there's a green screen that you can buy if you really want to do this. Okay, scheduling a meeting. Okay, so for scheduling a meeting, you have to go to Zoom, the Zoom online, and you have to create your own account. And they're going to ask you for an email address. They're going to ask you for a password so you can have an account created. And then you will be able to schedule the meetings and be the host and send out a meeting or start a meeting immediately. If you're just attending the meeting, you do not have to have a Zoom account. Okay? And downloading the app doesn't mean you automatically have an account. It's when you have to register and they want an email address and they want a password. That's when you have a registered Zoom account. Scheduling on a phone or a tablet. I should have put tablet in there. So I took a few screen prints on, for example, a phone where I would go to the Zoom app and I'm logged into my own account. And so you're going to see a whole bunch of little icons, and I would click on the one that says schedule a meeting. I want to schedule a meeting. And then this window would pop up and you can change the name there where it says Pieri's Zoom meeting. You can change that to say book club or whatnot. You put in the time, the date, all that information that's in there. And then after you put in the correct date, time, and all information, you click on add. And then it gives you information there so you can send a meeting invitation. Okay. Sometimes there's a little bit of fumbling with this because it wants to try to schedule it on a calendar and all that kind of stuff. So one thing that I do is I tell people to go down. If you look in the middle picture where it says meetings, when you click on that, it allows you to copy to the clipboard. This is like doing copy and paste. Okay, so instead of sending an invitation that opens up my Google account and the calendar and all that, I can click on meetings, copy to clipboard. And so what it's doing is it's copying the link that I'm going to send to people. And then I go ahead and open up an email. Okay, and I send it to people. I paste it on there. If you're doing it on the computer, this is where you would see something like this. I've created my meeting, but if I go to copy invitation or copy link, it allows me then to paste that into my email service. So I can copy the link. I can open up, let's say, my Gmail, go to compose, prepare my email, and then in the body of the email, I right-click paste, and the link is available for people. So that's one easy way to do it, just to copy the link. One other thing of word of caution as far as setting up a meeting, it would be a good idea to not send out the invitation till like the day before. Maybe a week before you let everybody know we're going to have a meeting, here's all the details. The link will be forthcoming the day before. because you know what's going to happen. On that day, people are going to say, I don't know what I did with the email. I lost the email, or they opened it, they clicked it, they deleted it, they forgot. And then you have to fumble on that same day of your presentation to try to get another link to them. So what I would suggest is send an invitation or send a notice, like a save the date beforehand, and let everybody know the day before the meeting, expect the link so you can get into the Zoom meeting. And that way you're covered and people will see it the day before and not, 2-3 weeks before that. After you've created your meeting, let's say you log into the Zoom account on the day that you're having the meeting, you're going to see that a dashboard like this, and then on the right-hand side, you see that there's a meeting that you've scheduled, okay? So make sure that you, as the host, you go to that screen and you go into the blue one that says start, okay? Because you want to go to the meeting that you had already set up previously. If you go to new meeting, you're going to be in one meeting and your attendees are going to be waiting and waiting, and it's going to say, oh, that person's in a different meeting, and then everything's messed up. So make sure that once you create the meeting, on the day of the meeting, you open up your dashboard in Zoom, and on the right-hand side, it will list all your meetings. And if you're, well, the other thing I've seen happen is somebody has created maybe 2 or 3 meetings, okay, for different days. They go in, they're the host, they click on the wrong date, they get into the meeting because they're the host, and people are waiting and saying, well, what's going on? How come no one's letting me in? It's because she selected the wrong meeting. So all these are different scenarios that could happen. So you have to pay attention. If the meeting was pre-scheduled, make sure you go right here on this meeting. Now, if something happens and for whatever reason the meeting is canceled, you're not going to meet that day, then notice on the, if you can see it, it's very little, but on the left-hand side of the start button, you will notice there's 3 dots. What does that mean? More. When you click on it, it gives you the ability to delete or cancel that meeting. Okay, so if for whatever reason you decided, you know what, this is not a good day to have the meeting, we're going to have it on a totally different day, make sure you delete that meeting so you don't get confused. Because what will happen is when the person goes into get into the meeting, if you sent them this one and they didn't go to the new one, they'll get a notice that says this meeting was canceled or this meeting was deleted. Okay, so this is what the dashboard would look like. Okay, you can schedule it or immediately start a meeting. If you're just starting the meeting now, you can go to just new meeting. So you have a new meeting and you have schedule. Okay, let me go ahead and stop the sharing so I can go in. I know I kind of threw out a lot of stuff at you, but does anybody have any questions or maybe any issues that you've had accessing that? And we can unmute you, right? You can ask to unmute.
We can definitely do that, Pieri. Thank you so much for a really concise summary of a lot of different pieces and parts to using Zoom and how to do it effectively. That was very helpful. Everyone has been super quiet, so feel free. I think you can all unmute if you would like to ask the question verbally. You can also put your question in the chat box if anybody has a question for Pieri. Now is a great time. I will go ahead and send out while you guys are all thinking about your questions, I'm going to fill the silence for just a minute. I will send out a wrap-up message to everybody this evening, and I'll include Pieri's email address and your website as well, and the upcoming classes. You have, let me get my info here. Pieri has a files and folders organizing your computer class, which would be so helpful for me. I have tons of files and folders, but they may not be super organized.
That class is one that I've held before, and
Yeah.
it's one that a lot of people are interested in, because as you said, we have all this stuff, all these files in our computer, and we need help organizing. How do I create a folder? How do I rename it? How do I move something from one folder to the other when I have tons of pictures that I need to organize? So this is really learning in your mind how to organize your filing system, and Windows is trying to help you by offering the tools to be able to do it.